So that's the training plan. Setting up a training plan for success needs to be flexible, needs to integrate with your life. We talked now about what that looks like a little bit more. And then we have the guidance, the coaching. So as you mentioned, your mission when creating Tri Squad was to make one-to-one coaching affordable and to give people more than just a training plan, to give them a coaching program.
Hmm.
What are things people need to think about when thinking about coaching support on their journey? Why is guidance important and how can people get guidance? What should that look like?
Coaching is it's interesting. The higher the level the athlete that I've got to coach in my time, and actually, if I extend it to a lot of C-suite executives that I've worked with, the higher up in the organization, the more valued coaching becomes. The most successful athletes that I coached, Tim Reed, Jesse Thomas, Sarah Piampiano, Rachel Joyce, all of these athletes were highly, highly coachable. And the ones that were equally as physically gifted as them that you've never heard of, one of the challenges was often a lack of coachability. That's the truth. Coaching is really valuable, and the reason it's really valuable is that no matter what your goals are, and you don't have to be trying to win a world championship, but you are taking on a commitment, a challenge, a set of goals in which you are hoping to, yes, get faster and be really successful. And it's a journey. There's no shortcut. That's the truth of it. And along that journey, you are the one that is doing all of the work. That means, by definition, you are in the weeds. And it's incredibly hard to retain perspective and actually understand how to course correct when you start to stray off course, or even that you are straying off course when you're the person in there committed, doing the work and the hard graft. I heard Steve Kerr, who's the Golden State Warriors basketball coach, and he was talking about him as a player and the value of coaching, and then he talked about great players, and his point was, you can't watch yourself play the game, so therefore it's really important to have coaching who can see. It's not that the coach is a better player. It's not that the coach is a better athlete than you. It's that they have perspective that you don't have. The other thing that a coach has, hopefully, is a broad vision of a whole bunch of different athletes that they've seen. They've seen your journey before, even though your journey is unique. And so, as a part of athlete success, it's very, very difficult to go alone. I think it's almost impossible to achieve success long term when you're just going along. You need to have some form of guidance, and that's just on the training that we're talking about. Now let's think about all of the other elements that are important that fuel athlete success: nutrition, sleep, recovery, equipment choices, strength and conditioning, mobility, injury management, blah blah blah. I could carry on. All of those fields are incredibly complex, full of confusing information that's contradictory out there. How are you supposed to be able to filter all of that information and understand where you should apply your focus and what is right for you? And so, with all of the highs and lows, personal circumstances, motivational dips that naturally occur, even if you're committed, that's going to occur, fatigue, life stresses, etc. Without support, athletes lose perspective. They spend hours that they don't have looking for answers, and sometimes they never know whether they really found the answers. And so coaching support is really the thing that helps build that confidence, take away distractions. Like I see ourselves as a filter, take away distractions and enable people to remove the guesswork and place their energy and mindset on the things that are actually going to move the performance needle. So coaching is a fundamental element of it.
Fantastic. Do we want to break down a little bit about what that coaching support, accountability, and feedback loop looks like for squad athletes?
Yeah, it starts. I mean, the truth is, it starts before an athlete even joins. You know, if and you're going to be the one that knows the most amount about this, because we really love it. It's great if an athlete just signs up for the squad program. It's terrific. But it's really enjoyable when you get an athlete reach out, and quite often, Max, you lead these conversations, for lack of a better phrase, of a needs assessment. Really understand. Hang on, are we for you? Are we Are we going to be a good match? Because they see it as a performance partnership, and any athlete can have that call to understand what squad is, but also for us to understand what their goals and their needs are, etc. So I would say that the coaching process almost begins before the athlete is actually signed up. But when an athlete does sign up, they get onto the program, obviously. But the first thing that we do is have a coaching kickoff call. So really understand, making sure that they have alignment. We can understand who they are as an athlete. We can understand their goals right from the start and empower the athlete to do what we've already talked about before with their training. Okay, around your goals, your current fitness level, your schedule, etc. This is how we want you to be successful. And then with the squad program, which is the more autonomous program, we'll talk about one-to-one coaching in part two of this show. But we have a check-in process because it's really important. I mean, if we're going to care about the athlete getting faster, being in control, building confidence, and going on the long-term journey, we can't just put them out to pasture and hope that they generate fantastic milk. And so we have a check-in process that is 1 week, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, 1 year. So all the way along the journey, we've got check-in, the proactive from us to the athlete. That's not all of the communication that you get from Purple Patch. That's us reaching out to you personally to ensure that it's successful. Along the journey, then, the athlete obviously has, from their proactive side, the opportunity to connect with coaches, etc. And we'll probably get into that. But that's I think the fundamental part of it. And then in a broader perspective, beyond the check-ins and the kickoff, having access to our team of coaches with all of our different expertise and frankly our personalities. Yeah, I'm big, loud, and boisterous, but we have all sorts of personalities. Athletes have email support, asking any questions that they want with Q&A. I think our hub, which is about a year and a half now that we've launched the hub program, which is the cornerstone of our education, our community, our feedback, that's a game changer for us. That's a game changer. Our athletes tell us it's a game changer where they get to connect with each other, but they also get to connect with the coaches. And then having the live events, many athletes join when I or one of the other coaches, quite often it's me, lead the live events for an opportunity to ask questions to particularly around the subject. And I think one thing that I mean, you could almost talk about, but the coaching consultations is I think a really, really, I would almost label it coaching on demand, and I would say, and I think that's the personalization where it matters is the way that I would label that, and that's beyond the regular coaching program. If an athlete needs deep customization, deep personalization, wants to do some season planning, wants to actually talk about a particular subject, whether it's race anxiety, female physiology, whatever it might be, they can just opt in to a one-to-one coaching consultation with yourself, Coach John, Coach Nancy, Coach Brad, any one of the coaches. Those have really become a feature of Squad and very, very incremental on cost. 30 or 60 minutes that you spend one to one, I think that's great. And actually, now the majority of Tri Squad athletes do choose to utilize those. We're doing hundreds of those a year. And I think in many ways, I'd love your feedback, but they're really one of the most valuable features of the squad program in many ways, don't you think?
Yeah. I think it's really where you have the opportunity to meet with the coach and do a deep dive and get the guidance that you need. And just to give a few examples, so we have season planning, we have pacing and race strategy, or reflecting and reviewing a race, but there's also, I'm newer to triathlon. I'm just getting into Olympic and sprint triathlons. How do I make changes to the programming? How do I customize things that are right for me? Or we had an athlete sign up the other day. She's training for a marathon with her husband. How do we blend our training together so we can go on this running journey and performance journey together? And so anything that you can think of, all of the things that are just personal circumstances, that's your chance to meet with a coach and get the support and guidance that you need.
Mhm.
It's fantastic. We Before this episode, I reached out to Tiger. I was curious about the stats about our coaching consults, and We did 374 coach consults in
Oh,
2024, and just so far in 2025, we've done 202. And so myself and all the other coaches, that's a big part of our week, and a big part of what we love about the job is the chance to connect with the squad athletes all over the world, which are
I'll
actually
also
29 countries.
I'll also, in the vein of how I built this as well, there's an important coaching element to this as well, which is for a team of coaches. You mentioned that it's a big part of your weekly life, but think about what starts to evolve there on coaching quality, because
Mhm.
you're not just working with your 10, 15, 20 athletes, however many athletes you're working with. You have your thumbprint on many, many athletes' journeys. So you're gaining experience the whole time. The team of coaches is looking at individual challenges and providing guidance in a really succinct manner to fuel their success. And there is a huge breadth of different goals, challenges, situations. So it's that hands on advice and counsel and guidance that I think really fosters ongoing coaching development. And we start to see that galvanize. That's why I think a big part of the reason that coaches don't tend to leave Purple Patch, and it's such a tight knit team, because we get to coach a lot, and I think that's why we're in it. So it's really, really fun.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. It's definitely
Yeah.
a fantastic part about working for Purple Patch.
Hmm.
Um, Moving on, going back to training a little bit, in the beginning you spoke about how building out an annual plan isn't necessarily the best way to do things, and life isn't a spreadsheet. That being said, having a long-term approach and understanding the progression of a triathlon season and where your goals fit in and when you're racing, so on and so forth, is important. So could you talk a little bit about this idea of having a long-term approach, long-term integration and transformation and going on a journey?
Yeah, it's I'll go back to the professional athletes as well, where if you think about being a professional athlete, you've got X number of races a year, 6 to 8 races a year, often culminating in things like the World Championships, the Hawaii Ironman, the Half Ironman World Championship, whatever it might be. Whenever we started a coaching relationship, the driving mission was to become the best athlete possible. They might have aspirations to become world champion, but it was through athlete development. And by becoming a better athlete over the long term, so what you are doing this year should help you be ready for all of your races this year, but also create a platform that you could build on and become a better athlete the next year following. And many of I think that was a part of the driver, both the team based approach with squad and that long term athlete development vision was the fuel that really enabled the longevity of many of the coaching relationships. Sarah Piampiano, 10 years, Jesse Thomas, 10 years, Tim Reed, 5 or 6 years, Rachel Joyce, 5 or 6 years. It was because an athlete would improve incrementally each year and along the way be successful. Why would that be any different for a busy amateur athlete? And so we design the program through the arc of athlete development. When you finish a season, you don't go back to square one. It's almost like a virtuous, circle going up and up and up and up. It's building and building and building and building year on year, month on month. So at the heart of it, whether you're working with a one-to-one athlete, whether you're working under the Tri Squad program, we set and we label this baseline because it's the galvanizing thing. The truth is that most people can be in lockstep most of the year on a similar athlete progressive journey. So that's how we develop the arc of development. And that makes it really fun as well. Because for much of the year, for much of your journey, you're doing stuff, even though, remember, we're tailoring and customizing for every person. We might be doing a different number of hours in a different order, but we're kind of in the same drum beat together. And that creates the cult, the galvanizing, the tribe, the squad. And that goes from there. But, and I think it's a big but, almost an and we need to make sure that athletes show up on race day ready, and that means that they need to progressively train for their key events and ensure that they show up, swim, bike, run, and strength ready for race day and recover from those sessions. So, on almost layering on top of it, almost coming off of a freeway, we have the race builds where they count down day by day into race day, recovery from, and then flowing back through. So you've got two things going on at once, which is long term athlete development. That's why we have so much retention. And then race builds to ensure that you, if you are on the program, Max, are getting ready for your race, whether it's getting ready for a sprint triathlon, whether it's getting ready for a marathon, whether it's getting ready for an Ironman triathlon. So that's how we create the flywheel effect of performance. I think it avoids burnout. I think it helps people dialing. The other part that I think it really helps is the depth of intentional focus. So it enables people to go along the journey and really integrate it into life, but then very clearly, which I think is really helpful for the psychology of an athlete, to put an X in the calendar and say, it's go time. Here I've got for the next 7 weeks, 11 weeks, however many weeks you're going onto your race build, it's go time. And now I am applying it's something that's a demarcation in the sand of let's get ready and let's dial it in now. And it gets more serious for that short period of time, but then enables when they're on baseline to have a little bit more flex. And that's really, really important. And the final thing I'll say on it is it really helps smash one of the biggest challenges of athletes, which is I need to be perfect all the time. And then they try and check every box of the athlete, but they don't address things like recovery, sleep, intentional blocks of rest, hydration, nutrition. If you're getting that most of the time, you're yielding consistency, and then you go and lock and load. So yeah, it's infused in the whole program.